Welcome to a quick discussion here. Neither yet a preferred YouTuber, not too much money to buy everything instantly, so I don't have my own benchmarks for that. I only wanted to quickly talk about this, share here some words and impressions, and if you have any comments, please leave them below. So 12th gen Intel Core processors launched these days. Lots of benchmarks out already, and a lot of YouTubers and such are a little bit positive for faster in gaming, 10% CR there, of Zen Ryzen 5950X or similar. And while I applaud competition is of course what we were lacking the last decade, where Intel could charge anything they want for their processors, and it's certainly nice to have AMD back there in the game. Of all the years of delays in Intel's process and releases and performance. Competition is good, and the 12th gen core processors certainly have some features, namely next generation PCIe as well as DDR5, something that AMD does not yet have, but it's coming also, right? So 12th gen Intel is mostly catch up, at times overtaking AMD, which is of course good, but comparing to last year's already nearly 12 months old AMD Silicon, and the next AMD Silicon is of course around the corner, so that will of course be the next update where AMD will lead the crown anyway. So while we are at it, what other stuff is new? Actually not that much. The process is old, so this is Intel 7 they say, although this is just another improved, where do they have this somewhere? It will be there on the slides. It's just another little bit improved Intel 10 nanometer process of 10% smaller or something efficiency than before. So it's, yeah, not really 7, marketing 7, the usual stuff. But sure, it's a little bit smaller and more efficient than Intel's previous plus process. What is also new is a big little setup. Scalable, yes, scalable, and they have customers, amazing. New is the ARM, what we know from ARM processors, big and little setup, where we have had this in mobile space for quite some years, meaning Intel now has some performance cores and some efficiency cores. And while certainly that is usable, so why do you do this? They do this on mobile longer and now on Intel because, as the name implies, efficiency cores are supposed to be more efficient, and so if you have just some idle background tasks, then you can run those and save some power. I'm quite question, however, though, how useful they are on the desktop. So the reviews say they are not as crappy as Intel Atoms, so there's quite some improvement there. I anyway question how good they are, and also how many, right? In my opinion, I wouldn't really need 8 of those. If you have some load, then just run like one performance core or something. This looks a little bit unnecessary, wasteful, and complex, like as x86 already is. We will see. I will stand corrected if that turns out to be amazing, but if I have a 100+ watt desktop enthusiast CPU, I want performance cores and not some cluster of efficiency cores that probably not really much used. This setup has another issue we will come to in a moment, namely AVX 512 and whether it is there or not, apparently, because initially, maybe we discuss it shortly, maybe that's better. Because initially Intel said, yeah, they disable infuse of AVX 512, but somehow it's there. I don't know if this will make it into long-term production or if they will remove that again, but Anartech here says there is actually in BIOS options, so they also were confused, which does it have AVX 512? Also, AVX 512 not even amazing, right? Previous video, Linus Torvalds and I, and certainly many others, not the greatest fan of. So complexity and wasted silicon space. That is AVX 512, but it's there in silicon for the server and such processors, and whether it is available on some consumer SKUs or not depends on, I don't know, the moon or Intel's marketing. Because the issue is AVX 512 is only in the performance cores, and they discuss here on Anartech, if your program that is using AVX 512 is then running on an efficiency core or starting on an efficiency core, it might crash and stuff with illegal instruction. However, there's a simple solution for that, right? The OS certainly you need for best use have a Windows 11 or Linux scheduler with awareness of performance versus efficiency cores. And this scheduler could actually, instead of sending the SIG kill to the application that used AVX 512 on efficiency core, simply migrate that transparency to a performance core and continue executing there. So that is not rocket science, that is easily doable, but that is a little bit, yeah, in general, I would personally, similar to Linus Torvalds, not mind if this AVX 512 is not there and rather give us more cores, because you can never more cores. Because again, all my previous videos, this very specialized instructions are not simply used. You need to build your software for that. Most software is not compiled with it. Most software, Windows, Mac, and Linux usually is shipped as smallest common denominator there, and is using generic AMD 64 instructions from a decade ago, plus some DLLs of math and multimedia that might use that, but mostly, like, I agree with Linus Torvalds, it's mostly waste of silicon space. So they say a 19% performance improvement, apparently some thread director for this OS scheduler, also again the same over complex syncing of Intel that x86 always was. It is crazy that there is now apparently some hardware support of monitoring runtime instruction mixes. Like, that is crazy in my opinion, that totally wasted. I'm feeling sorry for those logic gates of becoming a thread director, and it's like, just give us more real execution units and not some thread director for, yeah. Also, I would provide runtime feedback to the OS. So, I mean, obviously the operating system like Linux needs some specific support for receiving this thread director. But if this is really useful, I wonder if, yeah, dynamically adapts guidance is like, yeah, I don't know. This is, I would think that can be mostly done on software level anyway, of having stuff, SIG elegant instruction like the operating systems have done for decades with lazy FPU handling. Again, all silicon logic gates that go to strange magic monitoring features, somewhat wasted to me. New cache architecture, 30 megabyte of shared smart cache. That sounds to be less than Ryzen, which those have then a combined 72 megabyte. Also, this is L3, so that is L3 only. So we have say 1.25, and here's some 2 megabyte. So I think Ryzen should be 64 if I remember correct. So, but again, the total performance of course counts. Here's a summary of what is new. So up to 16 cores, 8 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. Given that only the performance cores are hyper-threaded, that can make up to a total of 24 threads. Again, 8 are low performance, high efficiency, so comparing quite apples and oranges to me is not the most useful, because I want performance. As I said, the DDR5 support, we will make future dedicated video about this. Basically, of course, more performance. Some features, including efficiency. But of course, right now, very few models, very high prices. But of course, as with previous iterations, we need more performance, and the only thing you can replace bandwidth is more bandwidth and more performance. So processor PCIe 5 up to 16 lanes, chipset PCIe 4 up to 12 lanes. So that is currently one generation newer than AMD, but AMD has scheduled that for silicon next year. So Intel has only some 6 to 12 months or whatever AMD's release schedule can be. I mean, not that you would need those today. Of course, always nice to have double the bandwidth, but it's of course coming to the AMD side as well. I mean, not to mention that AMD was earlier with PCIe 4, as far as I remember. And yeah, supports DDR4 if you have that. Of course, PCIe 4 up to 4 lanes, feature tag. So, as I said, of course, new chipsets which are expensive. It's usual. I mean, yeah, not that AMD chipsets are too cheap either. Anyway, long story short, I'm not the very most impressed. As far as I've seen, it does not have major new instructions, like even AVX 512 supposedly kind of not supported, although it is there. Nah. And sure, performance is better, and would be very sad if it wouldn't be. but I'm just not so impressed because it's also consuming massive power, right? They replaced the TDP with some platform-based power, what they call this. And not only is it higher than leader in gaming performance, again, so these slides are also taken to be some grain of salt. There were already huge discussions on the internet because they used here some version of Windows 11 which had some performance marginalities with AMD CPUs. So yeah, that mileage varies a lot. Plus, of course, more power. So that is 12th Gen 12900K. And that is not only a performance-based power, what they call this now, of 125 watt. This processor, depending on your configuration, BIOS settings and stuff, easily consumes up to 200 something watt. So yeah, it is of course nice that this is some 10, maybe 20 at times faster. But yeah, 241 watts or something with high performance hybrid. And this is with less cores, right? So, I mean, sure, it has higher peak performance, but yeah, 241 watt. And this is also what some sites measured. So that is some real performance. The only benefit for those K-SKUs is that now with cooling and power supply, you can actually run those long-term maximum turbo power if you have that cooling headroom and power supply. So that is some improvement, but yeah, again, 241 watt, right? That certainly is quite some number. And I would say this actually compares a little bit more to Threadripper, also certainly price comparison more with Ryzen. Power consumption here more with reaching Threadripper territory where of course the performance is higher. So again, not an AMD fanboy. I welcome a lot this renewed competition here, and that certainly keeps prices down in the industry and performance up, because it is exactly what we want to see, giant leap in performance. I'm just not agreeing with some overly positive reviews because all in all 10-20%. This is also, I think, Ryzen, the last Ryzen 5000 was also, was it 18% generational uptick. So that is just what AMD will deliver soon, as well as their feature spec for PCIe 5. Again, that is basically the summary, including this hybrid architecture with efficiency cores. Leave me the comments what you think. I don't have the very most use for that. That's basically like if we would be live streaming now, we would use some efficiency cores. Also, some performance cores would clock slower than if we have some light load. So the overall usability of that, yeah, I don't know. To me, that's not necessarily the most performance. Also, if I understand this benchmarks here correctly, I wonder, because they have here at Anantec Core i9 1290K, and so this is with AVX 512, right? So it looks to me, if I read these numbers correctly, and again 105 watt, 125 watt, and plus higher peak power, also lower price. We should give Intel that. But it also looks to me that this benchmark is only achieved with AVX 512, right? So that means at this day with this BIOS at that time, whether that feature stays in production, we will see that you disable your efficiency cores anyway, right? So if you want to have AVX 512 with some SKUs and some boards potentially maybe supported, I don't know, you don't have the efficiency cores. So for this particular benchmarks where AVX 512 can shine, you lose your efficiency cores anyway. And without those, if I read this correctly, it is way behind some Ryzen here, if that makes sense. Core, as far as what do they now? Back to Rocket Lake review, not that highest power consumption observed for the chip was during AVX 512 operation. Yeah, no surprise there. Our testing showcased big 50 watt jump. AVX 2 and AVX 512. This time, around the vendors managed to adjust power requirements. Yeah, whatever. So again, leave in the comments below. I would also recommend, even like myself, most people, of course, don't need this performance. And for that, I have to agree with some reviews, like maybe it was Linus Tech Tips, that the Intel Core i5 has tremendous performance for its value. So if you need average or above average gaming performance, that is certainly an affordable SKU to go. And otherwise, probably this is a recommended article. Oops, that's not where I wanted to click. Yeah, lots of details that we are used for Manantec. And here we have peak power. And so, yeah, peak power 272 watt. Sure, although this is much higher resulting performance there as seen in the previous benchmark. But one should also not forget at what power price, right? And some reviews were joking you would need not only an outstanding cooler, but also an aircon for your room in the summer to keep your office cooled. So comparing that, SVC is thermal base power, what they call this now, and 240, yeah, I mean, yeah, base power like half of what you have then in the benchmark. Although this is not 12 various. Slightly confusing. Do they not have a dedicated AVX into... here's 12. Oh, this is efficiency course. As a benchmark efficiency course. Yeah, okay. So if you run this on the efficiency course, you get nearly no performance. No surprise there. But yeah, does it make sense? I don't know. Maybe if you scale the performance with the power consumption, maybe that would underline my point that you could just clock the performance course less. Anyway, what else do we have there? The Graver, if they got high performance processors for free, be positive too. Oh, that is a good point, yeah, but always taking reviews with a grain of salt. Levantech gave Alder Lake a glowing review, especially the i5, yeah, that's what I said, i5. But the other one, TDP power consumption, sure, you get some more performance, but basically you get like 10-20% performance more with up to nearly twice. They had here a Ryzen clocked in at our 39, do they not have a 3950XY? Are always results. Is here one wrongly labeled? Should one be... this should be 5950X, only left on this channel finding some typos, I guess. So yeah, this should be 5950X, so much too. You wonder how many other mistakes, like benchmarking there on my More Life channel Firefox, each time we benchmark that there's some random run. Basically benchmarking Firefox random number generator. So yeah, 5950X, 151 watts, so yeah, although in this, again, in this very specific benchmark, that probably, where was it? This very specific benchmark has also significantly high performance, more than double due to the very specific nature of AVX 512. But I said it before, if you run this in the efficiency configuration, you don't get this. And in general, Linus Torvald and I say, give us twice the cores instead of the rarely used AVX 512. That would probably be better for most people. What else do we have there? The reason for efficiency cores is they can fit 4 E-cores in the space of 1. Yes, but again, if they only gives you a quarter of the performance, what good is it? For me, this is not, do they have a benchmark? For me, this doesn't make sense. I totally get this. On a mobile phone, you might want an efficiency core for if it's in your pocket, if it's idling in your pocket, it's doing background notification, receiving those and emails, checks and stuff. To me, also 8 make absolutely no sense. If they would at least like 4 efficiency or like one, what is it, like one cluster of those, is it 2 then? Maybe it's 2 or whatever. Give us 2 efficiency cores. Who needs 8 efficiency cores? If you have more than a little load, I would think the performance cores make already more sense. Even like you don't need to ramp up the clock instantly. As I said, run this cluster on the base frequency of the performance cores and do your emails check there. I would think, do they have a benchmark of the performance? They had the power number, they had the power draw, 12 AVX and 12, whatever. Alright, they don't have this because it's AVX 512. The performance as an efficiency course don't have this. But again, in a high performance system, we repeat ourselves. I question the usage. I wonder if AMD does the same, or if they just, as I said, improve general idle performance. And where do we have? Do they have here the somewhere civilization? So we have here, for example, here even is that Ryzen Max. The Ryzen Max FPS is with an 8 core. Okay, maybe because no inter CCX communication overhead, perhaps, maybe. Apparently, probably, I guess. So yeah, just underlining here in this, even in this case, so it's a little bit set, as I said, 10-20% performance with massive performance, with massive power consumption, and not in each benchmark. Your mileage varies on the use of cores, instruction mix, and so on. And of course, Ryzen, so much to latest Intel's generation, not even always faster than last year's AMD stuff. But again, competition is amazing, and Adrian is also not impressed with Intel either. And again, I'm not a fanboy of either. We also have here all architectures from ARM to RISC-V, unmatched and stuff. But again, competition is healthy. There is some good value, like the Intel Core i5, which they did not even benchmark here. And otherwise, for example, here even the as seen here, Ryzen 7 5800, you do not always need the highest numbered SKU from either AMD or Intel for your workload. We here, of course, we compile also open source stuff, so we are longing for a real EPYC or Threadripper. But that is something else. And if I wouldn't run a Linux distribution, I rarely would have use for this load as well, unless you really max out the latest and greatest AAA games. At times, or otherwise cat video editing and such stuff. Anyway, I hope you learned something. I'm really looking forward to see how this is going with this big little stuff and efficiency course. And the one thing, so I also like to stand corrected if it proves to be amazing that Intel has efficiency course in the next month or year to come. I'm just not seeing that. For me, wasted silicon and complexity. And otherwise, looking forward to AMD's updates as well, because certainly in some ways AMD is a little bit behind now with DDR5, PCIe 5, and I hope they deliver this soon. One thing we probably should point out, AMD has already some short-term hack, one could say, for taking the throne back from Intel, which is their previously teased, do they call it VStack, stacked cache of massively doubling or so the caches there. Let's quickly, I should have opened this vcache stack. So that's allegedly coming, 3D vcache, allegedly coming soon, maybe already the next month. And this of course doesn't solve everything. That does not bring PCIe 5 nor DDR5, but that is just, of course, the usual short-term hack Intel would also do if they want to take back the performance crown. And so that is exactly the healthy competition we're looking for. One thing I could probably shout out, there's some crazy stuff coming with XMP3 here, as we see this already. More profiles, so I think instead of 2 or 3 or so predefined profiles, and crazy enough, user profiles. So you can store 3 vendor profiles, 2 rewritable profiles. That's a little bit crazy to me. So you can store your custom overclocking settings in those memory. That's most likely a very simple writable 2-wire flash chip there, SPI flash there of some sort. And it is crazy that they support that, and this is certainly useful for, I mean, only useful for enthusiast users. Of course, normal users will never store their profiles there. So yeah, DOS-like file system naming of up to 16 character profile names. Like, yeah, I mean, sure, you don't really need much, but yeah, 2021 and state-of-the-art silicon manufacture slides feature up to 16 character profile names. Yeah, I wonder if this is Unicode and includes any Chinese clues. But anyway, so that is instead of keeping that node on text edit nodes or smartphone photos of your previously achieved overclocking settings, you can save them. That is certainly, yeah, somewhat complexly unnecessary, but improved user experience. There you have it. And otherwise, DDR5 also brings on-DIMM voltage regulation, so there is not a dedicated memory voltage there anymore. The DDR5 modules get 5 volt only, I think, and there is a power management integrated circuit, a PMIC, there that generates the on-chip voltage. I wonder if that improves performance. I slightly wonder why they have done this. They don't even include this here. I slightly wonder why. I mean, we have this 12 volt standard coming 12 volt only ATX. That is of course understandable that improves performance if your main power supply is only doing 12 volt. But we are talking, I think, 5 volt here. So I don't really quite see that this improves efficiency. Doesn't really look like that to me. The only thing is, well, it improves efficiency for the case you have less memory modules in there potentially, if you have then not a idle unused voltage regulator on your board, plus maybe tiny little bit more stable voltages if they are generated on demand on all of those modules. But otherwise it's a little bit similar to the profile and a little bit excessive in terms of adjusted capabilities. But anyway, there you have it. Other features of DDR4, there are even more features coming, more to a future video, including improved efficiency here with dynamic memory boost technology. But we will talk about that sometime soon, maybe when we get hardware or something. But yeah, lots of features even in the memory, and otherwise looking forward to your comments, as well as seeing that in real life and the future of AVX 512, especially the availability in the SKUs and BIOSes, plus the use of efficiency cores, whether there is any or if they are mostly idling because they are so low performance that it doesn't make much sense. Anyway, one last question. Adrian asked what do you think about the Apple M1 Max. Previous video, this is pretty amazing. I, in general, favored RISC for many decades already. I have basically nearly everything here from Spark to ARM, and certainly otherwise quite a fan of RISC and Apple M1, as I previously said with that video. Pretty impressed what Apple has done there, and it's also crazy that one lifestyle company can outpace the whole industry. Basically, ARM themselves plus all their partners do not have such high performance and high efficiency silicon. So I'm pretty thrilled of that, and actually I have one on order, MacBook 14 inch, second fastest CPU, only missing some GPU cores, and not fully maxed out because I'm not insane. I would also dedicated video coming soon in the next 7 days. I hope this MacBook arrives tomorrow. But I also wouldn't support Apple in terms of their vendor lock-in and proprietary technology if it would not be for our Mac software that we also still do here at Exacode. Don't delay. This video is brought to you by my company. If we wouldn't still do Mac software, I would maybe not have ordered that, but from the performance and efficiency perspective, that is of course very nice. And given that we do Mac software, we certainly need one. And then I can combine this with a YouTube channel and make a full review of this unit in the next 7 days, as well as work with that with our T2 Linux. So this Ashayo, what they call this, Linux kernel fork. This is of course just the Linux kernel, so we will also in our T2 Linux distribution add support importing those patches. It's already partially upstream, so packaging the bootloader, M1, N1, I think, and whatever surrounding infrastructure we need. And yeah, then also have this high performance ARM. Actually, I would say I'm more impressed by the Apple Silicon, that's probably fair to say, because of the performance with the efficiency, rivaling Ryzen and now this performance with a fraction of the power. When you think about that, the Intel Core i9 here consumes up to 240 watts, and the Apple M1 Max, probably what was it? Was it a 35 watt plus boosting or whatever, including a GPU? Then this is of course efficiency-wise much more amazing than this Intel efficiency cores here. But anyway, we will test this and do open source and have fun with this. Full reviews coming, and I hope you enjoyed this quick overview, a little bit of technical low-level code and operating system design perspective of the efficiency cores and whether there's any use. Or this, yeah, imagine new operating system, right? And then adding support for the thread director just because, I mean, it's not like, I wonder if the Linux kernel people are the most happy that they need to add even more complexity to interface with this thread director. I should actually look into the specification. I should actually check. This is actually what we are here for on this channel, right? Probably I should check if Intel disclosed the registers. I wonder what kind of, probably some model specific registers where you can get some data. Actually, would be interesting to see how they expose that. But yeah, this is a little bit recurring theme here. I wish for less complexity and more performance, like double the cores instead of this unnecessary surrounding thread director and efficiency cores and AVX 512 stuff that's really useful and only takes millions, if not billions of logic gates. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon for our next videos and live streams to come.